Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Sorry about the delay this morning. I accidentally deleted my desktop files and I was in the middle of a recovery effort, so that was the delay. I think I got most of them back, but man, you know how it goes sometimes with computers, right? Let's make sure we're connected, and then we're going to get into some headlines today. We're also going to look into Invaders from Mars. Now, Invaders from Mars 1986 was actually a reboot of an earlier version, a black and white version of the same film. And we're going to look at the 1986 version because one of you actually sent me that particular movie and asked me to look at it again. And I found some crazy stuff. Now, remember the buzzsaw that we discovered? And remember that the whole thing was about the occult meaning of shearing off the hair and the wool? Well, it appears in this film, Invaders from Mars, along with several other things that we have just been talking about over the last couple weeks and months. Now, we also found the connection between hypodermic needles and these saws, didn't we? And again, all of this is connected to this. Let's start watching here at 1 hour and 17 minutes and 29 seconds in the film, and you'll see this needle that comes out of this brain looking creature that actually inserts some kind of a tracking device or mind control mechanism, implant they call it, I think, in the movie, in the back of the head of these people to mind control them. Watch. Now, this in of itself isn't a big deal, is it? But when you look at all this in juxtaposition with everything else, all of a sudden a picture emerges, doesn't it? Let's keep watching here. So the boy's watching, the needle goes in the back of this guy's head. Now, of course, this is the syringe, and I'm going to demonstrate to you why this is the syringe that we've been talking about, the copper blue bloods. Basically combining man with the serpent, the smack the nation, you name it, it's all here in this film. Now I'm going to fast forward this to 1 hour and 25 minutes. I'm giving you timestamps just in case this is something you guys want to look up on your own as well. It's right here on YouTube server, Invaders from Mars, 1986. Let's fast forward this a bit to this 1 hour 25 minute mark, because there's even more. Another needle to the back of the head. Here's this brain looking creature. Now if you look on the left of your screen, you'll see what appears to be a Hydra like creature, and that is from the original black and white, I think it was in the 60s, 1950s or 60s original version of Invaders from Mars. And it has these tentacles coming off of it like a hydra, and it's also a brain-like creature. They kind of recreate that here. Of course, the needle to the back of the brain. Let's keep watching here. Thing is very serpentine-like. Now, people will argue, well, this is the brain and the spinal cord. Yes, it is. But what is the brain and the spinal cord? It's very serpentine, isn't it? That's why some people believe in Kundalini, because it's the serpent rising up through the spine. Let's keep watching. Now, if we fast forward a little bit here, here's where you'll see the buzzsaw. Now, I was shocked to see this. But again, one of you sent this to me. You know, in case you got to check this out. There's an actual buzzsaw in this film. And this thing is, I don't know what it is. It's some kind of a weapon that they're trying to deploy to clear these tunnels. It's got these buzzsaw edges to it. And again, we realized that that was all about shearing and cutting hair specifically. It also is synonymous with hypodermic needles and umbrellas as well. All of these pretty much have the same meaning. Now let's keep going with this. And we'll get over to... So the military invades this particular place, and it's actually on a place called Copper Hill. Now what makes this interesting is copper is where these people, these Martians, get their power. And you're going to hear him say this.
Bastards.
Look at this. There's the DNA strand. Where do we see this? Now it's a ladder, of course, but it's twisted like a DNA strand. And this was their only way out of Copper Hill, where the aliens had posted up with their spaceship. Where did we see this before? We saw this in Raised by Wolves, didn't we? And it was inside of the structure, the hexagrammic structure, the column basalt structure, the tunnels and caves that we think are the tree stumps. And there was this same exact ladder almost inside that episode of Raised by Wolves.
Sealed off the entrance. Start digging!
Then they find this device of some kind, and they basically realize that it's powered by copper.
Yeah. General Wilson! I know it sounds crazy. That just might do the trick if we can just figure out how to make it work in time.
General Wilson? Fuel! It needs fuel! Copper! Copper is what they use. I saw them load. Wilson? Fuel! It needs fuel! Copper! Copper is what they use. I saw them load it.
Well, maybe a penny will do it.
So he says maybe a penny will do it. Now, here's what's crazy. Let's keep watching here.
Damn, I had a whole bag full.
Great Scott, hasn't anybody got a penny?
We don't carry loose change into combat, sir.
We don't carry loose change into combat, sir. Now, that's a loaded line, isn't it? Because they don't want soldiers to think about what they're actually doing. Because if they sat and thought about what they're actually doing, they would realize that all of it's lies and it's just to make people rich.
Sir, a minute and 15 seconds.
Damn it. 58D, mint condition.
So the boy pulls out this penny, and it's 58D mint condition. Now we'll get into what that means in a second, but this is crazy. He puts it in the slot, and they use this thing basically to power their way out of the spaceship.
You aim on fire.
Copper powered weapon. Now we've been talking about copper powered weapons, haven't we? Yes, we have. So let's keep going with this because there's a little bit more. I want to go back to the Wikipedia page for this film, 1986. And guess what? This film released on 666, June 6th, 1986. 666. And as the title suggests, it's all about an alien invasion from Mars. You heard the boy mention copper. They use it as their power. And in my opinion, all planets are demonic wandering stars. Which is why you don't hear the word planet mentioned in the creation story of the Bible in Genesis. You hear about lights in the night, but you don't hear about planets. Now, the budget on this film was $7 million. And look at this. Box office was 7 times $0.07 million. 49. 4.9. Now, I didn't take the time to watch this entire film, but the plot here tells us everything we need to know. The Martians landing on Copper Hill. I think it says it right here. In here it is, Copper Hill. And this is all about the serpent bloodlines trying to mix with the seed of men as they basically inject their victims with a copper serpent injection. Snake venom. Now, let's break this penny thing down a little bit more. because when this came out, there was no penny that had copper in it. Well, there were a few in circulation still, but in 1982, the alloy, 95% copper and 5% zinc, was replaced and basically flip-flopped so that it became mostly zinc and just a little bit of copper. Now, we talked about why that might be. I believe that they were using coins to store precious metals. And then when they're ready to use the precious metals, they simply pull them out of circulation. So because most people just throw away pennies, they're like, we better take that copper out of the pennies because we can't recover that once it gets thrown into a well or a sewer or into or just buried in a landfill. You see how this works? So basically, our currency is a mining bank, if you could imagine that, with all these metals that they can simply pull out of circulation and use for whatever they want. In this case, to build the Jive Gee Whiz prison. Lots of copper is needed, so all they got to do is start pulling some of these coins out of currency. Now, all the coins, as we've repeated over and over again on this channel, currently in our current economic system, most coins in America are solid copper cores. They're 70-80% copper in the middle, except for the penny. This got changed over in 1982, as you can see right here. And so, but the boy pulls out a 58D penny, as you just heard him say. What is the 58D penny? Well, interestingly, this is a very expensive penny. It's a wheat penny. Now, of course, we know all the significance of the number 58. Lots of symbolism behind the number 58. 58 and 58 is 116, which is blind 11 upside down. And this penny is worth tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's 19 millimeters in diameter and weighs 3.11 grams. That's 311, March 11th. And as you can see, it is 95% copper, 5% tin, and zinc. One of the original, mostly solid copper pennies. Interesting, right? Now, here's what else is interesting, is that this penny, the reason why it is so rare is because it is double struck. And that's what the D stands for. Double struck. And what does this doubling mean? Well, there's spiritual significance to what this means, this doubling. Because this is all about mixing the seed of the serpent with the seed of man. They shall mingle themselves with the seed of men. Right? So what really is minting? What is it? Well, it's probably synonymous to birth for these people. Birthing in currency through the waters. We're all born through water, aren't we? So they birth in coins through current. The ocean's current or the river's current. Currency. They have basically a metaphor for every single thing that God does that is good. These people have an evil metaphor for. Look at the cost of this thing. I think these are gradings here, MS63, MS60. This thing's worth $219,000 in very good condition. So, weird, right? This doubling aspect. I believe it's going to have to do with the empty vessel being filled with the demonic spirit, being full of darkness instead of the Holy Spirit. And how are they going to get there? Through the needle, just as it showed in Invaders from Mars, 1986. Now, let me check in with you guys, and we'll get into the rest of the headlines for today. There's a lot to cover. Well, not a lot today, but I want to thank the subscriber who sent me the timestamps and everything for that film. It really helps when you guys do that. If there's a film you want me to watch and you've already seen it, if you can just link the film, put the timestamps, and, you know, whatever important information that you feel like is relevant to what we've been looking at, then there's a good chance, probably 50-50 chance, that I will probably decode that film, because you've pretty much done the work for me. And of course I find more stuff, but to screen all these films, sometimes it's difficult to do, but this is my job. This is what I do. We do this every single day. So let's get into some of these headlines. Now, this is interesting because old St. Ouchie says the spam-demic is officially over. Really? Seriously. So why is there still mandatory vidcos smack the nations in most colleges and federal jobs and in the medical industry if this thing is supposedly over? Washington Post, United States is out of the spam-demic, says Ouchie. United States is finally out of the spam-demic, the country's top infectious disease expert said, as cases and hospitalizations are notably down, and mask mandates are all but extinct. What about the smack-scene mandates, though? They don't talk about that, do they? Now, why could they possibly be trying to ease us out of this, or pretending to ease us out of this? Because, as I just said, they're still requiring many people to get the smack-scene. So what is the whole purpose of telling us that it's over? Well, they would want us probably focused on all the billions of dollars that we've been giving away to Ukraine to preserve democracy, right? That's what I think's going on. They want our focus on the preservation of democracy and going against, we're going to start calling it Hushka, because you can't talk about it. Hushka or Hushia. Now, let's get into some Greasewell updates. Everybody's kind of forgotten about Greasewell, haven't we? Because for some reason it's okay to televise the Johnny Depp trial, but it isn't okay to film one of the most important trials in U.S. history, which was all about the largest traffic cover-up in U.S. history, wasn't it? Going all the way to the top of the U.S. government. This particular trial should have been put on TV. It should have been mandatory. There should have been protests requiring it. But instead, people are being distracted with illegally taped and inadmissible secret recordings and videotapes during the Depp trial. So that everybody has sympathy for the devil. Because that's pretty much what Depp is. He's the devil. So they want us to have sympathy. Unbelievable. Anyway, I didn't know this, but Greasewell's brother-in-law allegedly jumped off a cliff. And apparently when he jumped off the cliff, he didn't have his hand or his foot, which is really weird. Or what they're claiming here is that his hand and foot were chewed off by wild animals. Because that's the first thing wild animals go for when they find a carcass, right? They go for the foot or the hand. You know, because bears, they just love deer feet, don't they? Wow. Anyway, this quote-unquote jump fits right into the meme that we've been tracking over the last several months of prominent people jumping out of windows and off of buildings and falling from high places. Let's read a little bit of this. A hand and foot were missing, probably eaten by wild boars. Really? Mysterious death of Greasewell's conman brother-in-law is finally declared a saucy side 7 years after he jumped to his death from a 100-foot cliff in France. I don't even know if, I guess France does have 100-foot cliffs down in the southern part of France, where all the big mountains are. So, weird things, right? And if, like I said, of course, wild animals don't go after feet and hands. I mean, unless he was holding a hot dog or something. So this is just really weird. It sounds to me like a torture death of some kind of murder. And here is, I guess, the brother-in-law. I think this is her sister. And this is what happened. Now, my guess is this guy probably knew something or he had some information. So there's something that ties all of this in to everything that's going on with the case, is my opinion. People don't just drop out like this and die. But apparently this is what they want us to believe is going on. Now, let's get into what else is going on with Greasewell, because apparently the judge just denied a retrial. Now, this is a big deal because we thought she was going to get off, didn't we? Now, we still have yet to see a real picture of her, in my opinion, in custody, in a jumpsuit. And I don't know why that is. Well, we pretty much know that possibly why that is. This whole thing could be made up, you guys. She could already be on an island somewhere. Right? So anyway, she was supposed to get a retrial because there was one of the jurors that they selected. And this particular juror was from, where was he from? He's worked for some company. He worked for some group that was known to get involved in political scandals and use money to get people out of things. And that's where this juror came from. And apparently he had a history of abuse that he lied about on the questionnaire. So there was this threat out there that she was going to get a retrial because the juror lied on the jury questionnaire form. Well, the judge has since denied a retrial. So if she is really in custody, it looks like she's going to be spending a long time in jail. I guess we'll have to keep our eyes peeled about this. I'm kind of sick of following this story, but I'm following it out because this is one of the most important trials in U.S. history, even though they're trying to downplay it. Now, let's get into some of these other headlines today. Husha. We're calling them Husha, right? Because you can't talk about it. Making drastic moves and flexing its muscle in the gas markets. And they warned a couple months ago that they would only be accepting rubles in payment for natural gas. Well, apparently, a couple of countries in Europe didn't take them seriously. And after Husha didn't get paid for like 30 days, they pulled the plug on natural gas for at least two countries so far, Poland and Bulgaria. Now, this is a big deal because we're talking energy needs. This doesn't just affect people. You guys, this affects industry. Entire economies dependent on natural gas are now going to flush down the toilet in these countries. They won't be able to produce certain things anymore without fuel to do it. Now, as it sits now, these European leaders are trying to blame the people, right? And they're like, you could use less gas. Use less gas. Let's stick it to Husha. Let's stick it to Husha. Use less gas, right? But really, what they're not talking about is that entire industries within their country are dependent on natural gas. So in effect, Husha is basically defunding them, which is huge. Now, it's like I said, it's only Poland and Bulgaria for now. But I suspect that one of two things is going to happen. Europe's either going to give in, or Husha is going to have to keep pulling the plug on more and more countries. And basically, you're going to see another dark ages in Europe. This is getting really bad. Now, I was not expecting Europe to devolve in this fashion since I left there in 2017. It was actually a really cool place in 2017 when I was there. And I left. And ever since, everything's been falling apart. Now, of course, this had nothing to do with me. I'm not suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is there is a shift, any change going on over there, starting with the Yellow Vest movement. Then, of course, the spam-demic and how those people were treated. They weren't actually able to even go to certain stores, malls. They got hit hard with these mandates. All their tourism went away because people weren't flying there because of mandates and shutdowns and lockdowns. You guys, Russia is getting pounded right now. I mean, I'm sorry, not Russia. Europe is getting pounded right now. And so what does that tell you? Well, now here we are, and they're trying to tell these people, oh, it's okay to be cold. It's okay to not drive as much. It's okay to drive a certain speed limit so you don't burn more gas. So basically, they're going back to rationing. That's what's happening in Europe right now. Now, is this all by design? I don't know. But who are the people in the U.S. government making decisions and choices? I mean, didn't they have some kind of contingency plan for this? Like, what's going on? Like, did they not know that Husha was going to do this? I mean, that's the first thing Husha could have did. And you know what? They could have did it way sooner, couldn't they have? They could have done it in the middle of winter. And at least they waited till the winter was over to do this. But man, oh man, things are getting dicey in Europe. And so I don't know what to say, but it's really, really sad what's going on over there right now. Now, I'm really glad that everybody showed up for the screening or the rescreening of Utopia, the Utopia series that we did. And that was crazy, you guys. We just did that yesterday, the rescreening of that. The original Decode uploaded 4 months after the first lockdown in 2020. It was March is when the lockdown happened, and 4 months after that, we had uploaded that Decode on Utopia series. And there was a lot of stuff that we were talking about in yesterday's show that ended up happening. They ended up becoming true. Probably the most profound one was Smack Scene Day in the series. And we, in fact, really did have a Smack Scene Day, didn't we? And it was right around the same time that it was in the series. November of 2020 is when they pretty much had the smack scene done and rolled it out to the world. December 2020 is when it started to roll out, but by November, they already had approvals and everything was in place. So it mirrored the movie almost perfectly. Then they talked about what was actually in the smack scene. It even boiled it down to the actual name of the smack scene, which is called Kovacs in the series. And they actually really came out with a smack scene called Kovacs. And this was the one that they used to try to push onto the African nations and third world nations. I think they tried to push that one onto Cuba and Haiti as well. So, I mean, it got very specific, didn't it? And that video basically predicted the worldwide smack scene agenda before anybody knew it was going to happen. Now, in yesterday's video, we talked about the lie that the world is overcrowded, because this is what they want to keep pushing onto us. Oh, the world's overcrowded. There aren't enough resources. Everyone's going to starve. We have to do something. We have to do something, right? The reason why we're talking about that is because the Utopia series was all about overpopulation of the world. And the reason why they said that they had to, give out this smack scene was to control the population of the world. That was the entire plot of that series. And so we were talking about that, weren't we? About how there really is not an overcrowding problem. And let's go to this here. And I wanted to follow up with this math lesson for you guys today, because a couple of people said, you can't put everybody in Texas. Everybody in the world fits into Texas, and actually, they actually do. This article right here admits that you could fit everybody into the state of Texas. Now, of course, you're not going to have infrastructure. You're not going to have roads. You're not going to have, power. You're not going to have all the things that would require human life. But we're more talking about we're more talking about the point that you could fit everyone in the world into a geographical location. We're not talking about actually supporting those people. We're talking about size. And just to give you an idea of how much area of the planet could actually be occupied by people and is occupied by people. And that gives you an idea. Now, of course, you have to take into account food, water. You have to take into account resources, arable land, right? And when you think about that, yes, the world becomes a smaller place. But here they did the math. Some like to assert that everybody on Earth could fit into the state of Texas using logic as follows. The area of Texas is about 262,000 square miles. Dividing this figure by the current human population of 7 billion. Now this is old, of course, because I think we're up to 9 billion now, or maybe even 10 billion. Leaves each person with less than 100 square meters. So this would probably be closer to 80 square meters. A small plot, the size of a big room, about 10 by 10 meters. So, yeah, of course, no one would want to live like that, and you couldn't, but we're talking about just getting your bearings in terms of how many people there actually are in the world. Okay, so that's what's going on with everybody fitting into the state of Texas. Now, it breaks it out here, as you can see. Again, this would be a 10 by 10 meter room, which would be just like a large room. India would go up here, China here, Africa. Look at the US, we're tiny. Oceania, I don't know what that really means. Europe, and Latin America. Now, interestingly, this article, as I was reading through it, revealed something else that I wasn't expecting to find. It states here that a third of the land on Earth is desert. And I was thinking to myself, where have I heard that before? A third of the land on Earth is desert. And then it hit me. Wormwood. Wormwood. Well, we all know what that is. It's a very bizarre passage in the book of Revelation that talks about a third of the earth being burnt. Well, isn't that kind of like what a desert is? Like scorched earth? A third of the earth was burned up. A third of the trees were burned up. Well, the trees would be in that third of the earth that's desert. All of the green grass in that desert's burned up. A third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. The name of the star is Wormwood. Makes you wonder if Wormwood hasn't already been fulfilled or pre-fulfilled. I believe some of these prophecies have pre-fulfillments or clues pointing forward to the fuller fulfillment of the prophecy. Now, it mentions a third of the oceans, doesn't it? So I was like, how are the oceans doing? Well, I found this map. Ocean dead zones, where oxygen is lower than 2 milligrams per liter. And look at this. Everything in blue is a dead zone. And to me, this looks like about a third of the oceans. Dead. Now, those orange dots you see here are coastal areas that are dead as well. Look at this. Look at the entire eastern seaboard has dead zones along the coast. West coast as well. Pockets of death, making up fully, probably close to a third of the oceans, fulfilling this prophecy of Wormwood. Crazy. Now, if Wormwood already happened, this would be, of course, more proof of the Bible's accuracy, because who else could have known that this was going to happen except for the Most High, right? And his wisdom. Now let's go into the chat here for a little bit and see what's going on with you guys. Thanks for showing up, you guys. Again, sorry I was late this morning. Yeah, notice the 33%, of course, because 33% is actually exactly 1/3. All right. UN Agenda 2033. Troy says zombie zones. Right. All right. Tap in English means creep, a disgusting person. Oh, yeah, it pretty much fits the bill, doesn't it? What about the land outside the ice wall surrounding the Earth? I don't think we have access to that. We're trapped in the prison, the Matrix. Oceania would include New Zealand, Australia, and the like. Okay, thanks, Holy Spirit Breathe Media. Thanks, Joe. Okay. There is a syringe in the line of the Washington Monument. Yes, we covered that. Angela, thanks. Gas is expensive. Yes, it is. Elon's middle name is Reeve. Now, I had some footage. I don't know if I was able to recover it because like I said, I deleted my desktop folder by accident. I don't know what I was thinking. And so I was able to recover it, but I had recorded some footage for you guys trying to catch one of these striper on film. Because many of you have asked me, you're like, Casey, you know, it's cool to see the fish, but can you actually show us, you know, you actually catching the fish? So I got some footage put together. I'm going to try to get that up for you guys. My luck, I go out the next day to grab footage and actually catch a fish, and they're not biting. I got hooked up a couple times, but I couldn't get them in. So I don't know what was going on with that. But we'll get back out there and get one on film for you guys. I do have a GoPro, And so I know a lot of you are interested in that. Jive G causes balding. Yes. Yep. So all this goes back to this balding meme. Now, something else happened. I just watched another movie, or I started to watch another movie called Velvet Buzzsaw with Jake Gyllenhaal. Now, this came out before the spamdemic. It came out in 2019, the beginning of 2019. And in that film, there is a bald cat and a buzzsaw. So, we're not making all this up. It's actually real. It's a real meme. It's really happening. These are new memes that people really aren't discovering. They don't know about. They haven't really identified them and seen the trends and seen the connections. So these are all pieces to the puzzle, aren't they? Pieces to the puzzle. Anyways, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I'm going to try to keep working on getting all these files recovered. I love each and every one of you, and I hope you guys all have a great day. Take care and be safe.